Hey, what's up? This is Phoenix, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I encourage you to like, subscribe, and share as it helps me a lot and keeps you updated on new content that I am releasing. And I also encourage you to check out my other videos. At this point, I have 300 plus videos on a variety of topics, featuring a variety of literal content, and I'm very proud of all of that. And yeah, so I am Phoenix, and I have written 77 books. Now, usually when I tell people, they usually aren't too impressed. They're like, okay, whatever, and that's fine. But for me, personally, that feels like an astronomical number, and that's because 77 books is a lot. It's a lot of writing, a lot of words. I've lost count of the word count. Even though my poetry is a little bit shorter, word count wise, it is still a ridiculous amount. And I don't know what to do with that sometimes. It's been about a decade since I have been writing these books, although I started writing books in my teenage years, though I don't have very much from that period. I lost all of it, basically, although I kept track of, thankfully, one of my books. And then I wrote my first book when I was 19, which was really cool. But generally, yeah, over the past decade of my life, I am now 30, I have written 77 books. And I honestly, really am glad that I have. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity to write them. I mean, a decade of your life writing is a long time. To do it every day, regardless of how you feel, regardless of how you feel about the book, even thinking that your books are bad and that nobody cares. But the way that I've been able to do it is by writing prose in the morning, usually. I would say 99% of the time writing prose in the morning, which could be philosophy, essays, fiction, or whatever I'm working on at the time. And then making a goal to write a poem maybe every day or at least every other day, sometimes even a little bit more infrequently, but basically writing a poem in the evening. That honestly helped me relax and a lot of the times and kind of ease into the evening, which has been nice. And one reason why I like writing poetry, because I'm amped up from the day and I'm able to write down my thoughts and my ideas and stuff. Now, as you may know, I have published about 18 books, 18 plus books, you could say. I recently had Rap as a Kindle giveaway, and I like doing the giveaways because it gets my work out there and allows people to read my books. It's more accessible and the like. But I also have Kindle singles and stuff like that. So I have my books next to me. I'm not going to grab them because it's literally just way too much paper and it weighs too much. But I will probably be referencing them throughout this talk. And I have them. In fact, speaking of that, Pocket Words. This is a short book, but it actually took about 4 years to write, and it was not easy to write. It's interesting how I can crank out a long book of about, I don't know, 100,000 words to 200,000 words or maybe more, and I can do that within a few months, but how writing poetry books that are even as short as Pocket Words, and as ideally fitting in your pocket, those poems being able to do that still takes 4 years. Actually, I have a book called Expressions of a Universe, which is basically a philosophical notebook, and I've literally spent about 4 years on that book, and just writing a little bit at a time. And I really like that process. As you can tell, I'm definitely very enthusiastic about my books, and if you wanna look them up yourself, you can find them at my author page at amazon.com/author/Phoenix_rises, and I definitely encourage you to check them out. They're 18 plus, including other books I published, like The Philosophy of My Existence, which is only available for Kindle at the moment, or I should say for download at the moment, but I'm very excited about that. Now, I will admit, I have not always been confident about my books and about my writing. I know that it's something I've wanted to do for a long time, but obviously if you want to write that many books, you have to really buckle down and do it. But actually recently I went to a Tool concert, and usually I'm very stoked at concerts, but I have to admit, seeing Tool and seeing what they were able to do, I will admit it felt painful to see a kind of success that I can only dream of. But I quickly had to retract myself and be like, nope, I've accomplished a lot over the past decade and more of my life, and I should be proud of that. And that's why I decided that I was going to look at it in terms of what I have accomplished in terms of writing for sure, which is 77 books over the past decade. And I think that I've spent a lot of my time doing that, and I think that matters. And I think that even if people aren't always reading my books, I'm glad that I've done it. I mean, I've literally only published a fraction of my books, partially because it's hard to find a publisher. It's definitely hard to self-publish your books and have that out there. because it takes a lot of work with like the art work and like with the design and the interior, and it's crazy and it's not easy to do. I have to wait until things fall into place usually, and that takes time. It's hard to find a publisher, and sometimes it's even hard to find a reader or readers. I will admit, I feel as though I am a rogue writer, so to speak, which is often why I use the theme of rogue or resisting, resistor, radical, stuff like that, because I actually don't fit in very easily in writing groups. There are many ways in which writing groups can be kind of on the edge, right? So you have like experimentalism, you have transgressivism, as you could call it. You have like all of these things, even intellectualism, all of these things that make writing very difficult, and for even that make writers write difficult things for people to read. But even with those fringe groups, I haven't fit in, and that is crazy to me. But I realize that the writing is what's important to me. It's the integrity of it, and that's what I focus on every day. And I'm okay with being a rogue writer, because I do have readers, and I'm continually trying to build up my my audience, so to speak, because I think that there's definitely a lot there for people to explore, and I'm very excited about that. It's hard being a rogue writer, but for me, the way that I see it is I just have to have the integrity to write every day and to do it regardless of what other people think, and that's really hard because obviously you want an audience and you want people to engage and you want to fit into groups, but into writing groups, but obviously it's difficult, and it's difficult to fit in sometimes, but that's fine because it doesn't change what I'm doing. So I've written about 26 novels, and I've written about 30 poetry books, with many others in the works. Right now I'm currently working on a book called Infinity Loop, which is basically a way of trying to code my writing, so to speak, make it unknown in a sense, make it kind of mysterious. That's kind of my idea. And with that book specifically, I'm actually trying to get out of my habit of just saying what I think. You know, the famous rule of writing, show, don't tell. I'm really trying to do that with this book, and using the language in a different way. And I really like that. And then I've written like four essay, or actually I think I've written like 6 essay collections total. I've written philosophy books. I actually have my book, Equivalence, which no one reads because it's the most obscure thing in the world. But it's basically inspired by like Wittgenstein, or like Wittgenstein's Tractatus as an example, or also inspired by the Tao Te Ching, and kind of the structure. And I really like that. But this book was definitely fun to write, and it's philosophical. And yeah, I would say that in terms of the philosophy books that I've written and published, the one that I'm most excited about is In Defense of the Mind, because that one includes my notion of infinite potentiality, and I love that idea because it's simply about the basically infinite potential of ideas and of the mind. And I love that argument, and I try to use the metaphor of superposition and quantum mechanics as part of that, but I certainly encourage you to check out In Defense of the Mind. I consider that to be my most robust philosophical work that I've written today, and that I've written as of now. And so I've written tons of essay collections, The Crumbling Mansions, which is about homelessness, and my experiences working with various organizations and the like. So yeah, I do experiment a lot with my writing because I love that ability to be able to experiment with what I'm writing. And I will say that I experiment with tone, with voice, with the content, with the style, with even the very words that I use. I'm constantly trying to push my boundaries and like experience something different with my writing. And I really like the formal qualities of writing, like focusing on how something is said rather than just what you're saying. Actually, honestly, one of the most intelligent things that I've learned throughout time, I learned it in school as an example, is the notion of the conceptual. You can say a lot of really interesting things by deconstructing the context in which you say something, and I love that. I just find that to be such a powerful technique. But in general, speaking of like my background and my education and the way that I've like learned how to write, I do actually push against the avant-garde and experimentalism writ large as a practice, and part of that is because I think it's limiting. Actually, when I wrote my book Cognition Alleys not too long ago, I just finished that on my 30th birthday back in October. I was really proud of that book, but I wrote that book because I wanted to write it. I wasn't focused on any kind of experimental notion, any kind of experimental quality of writing, any kind of experimental technique. I just wanted to write a pure emotional text. And I don't know if a lot of people would even be interested in that book. It's about 200,000 words. It's very dense. Actually, one moment. Cognition Alleys reminds me of a book like In the Garden of Evil, which even if the text is different, you can see how long it is. It's insane. I don't know how I've done it, honestly. But even with the intensity of like the length and stuff, like I had to write that, and so I did it anyway. I knew it was complex. You could call it an epic novel, so to speak, in the vein of someone like Tolkien or something like that. You could totally do that. Because that's kind of what it was, but it was what I wanted to write. And I liked Cognition Alleys because it focused a lot on the emotional qualities of the writing, and I really liked that. So I would say, even though experimentalism has influenced me in general with thinking about difficult texts, like James Joyce, for instance, who comes up a lot in conversations like that, Ulysses is so impossible to read. As much as I like that book, yeah, I don't understand it very well. But yeah, I just wanted to write books. That's always what I've wanted to do. And there's been a lot of BS I've had to go through in the process of it, but I think it's worth it to push through, as they say, no mud, no lotus. And even though it's been hard finding an audience and finding a publisher, it's certainly something that I've been able to do, and I'm very grateful for that. Now, I would say it's a lot of work that I've been doing and kind of writing what I want to write and kind of being a rebel, so to speak. Some people have called me a Renaissance man, actually, which I really appreciate. I think that that's really cool. And yeah, and I really appreciate that. I know that I write many long books. In fact, even my novellas are pretty long, but I like that quality. So yeah, um, I'm Phoenix, and I would say at this point, my two favorite books that I'm in the process of publishing, or that I published, are The Street Kid, and probably I would say In Defense of the Mind, or maybe Wordless, which is my poetry book. Although I've also been proud of Pocket Words. But yeah, I've written 77 books. Not easy to do, but I've done it. And basically, what I would say for you, if you're an artist or if you're ambitious, persistence pays off. Persistence is worth it. So yeah, this is Phoenix, and I encourage you to check out my books and check out my other videos. But yeah, this is Phoenix, and thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this talk. Go get it. Go after it. This is Phoenix, and thank you.